It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to Jill on Money. You heard what the man said. This is the show that takes the mystery out of your financial life. I am Jill Schlesinger, formerly of CBS News. Informally, your host today, certified financial planner. And I work for this guy named Mark, who essentially I do work for you, Mark. You boss me around all the time and you just tell me what to do. So that's good. Mark's running the show and he does all sorts of great things on behalf of our effort. And he makes this show possible. And one of the things that he and the Mad Russian did was they revamped our website, which seemed to drive my previous designer nutsy. She literally sent me an email and said, "Did you mean it to look like this?" I said, "Yes, I did." It's very easy to use. Go to jillonmoney.com. That's where we have all of our stuff. You can read columns. You can listen to old shows. You can watch TV appearances and some video clips. You can do it all. You can also subscribe to our sister broadcast called Better Off, the podcast. You can subscribe to Better Off at Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere you get your favorite podcast. But this is your show, and it is one of those things that is the grand privilege in my life to be able to talk to you all and answer your questions. You know, I got an interesting question. I'll have to tell Mark about who it is who sent it to me, which was a question about You Promise, which is a way to fund education. And I had to go look it up a bit and familiarize myself. It's kind of like a rewards program that then shifts your money into college savings. So it's a good way to save a few shekels here and there for college. You're not going to send your kids to Stanford on this thing, but it is not a bad way to get some rewards for doing business with organizations where essentially they just take the middleman fee. It's a Sally Mae product and shovel it into an account for your benefit. So if you're ready to save for college for your kids, and that's a baby step before you do the 529, you can actually move the money from the You Promise account into a 529. It's not a bad thing. But again, we always say here, we would much prefer that you get your big picture financial planning needs met before you start saving for college. So you know what that means. That means you need to have your emergency reserve fund set 6 to 12 months of your living expenses. You've got to pay down that consumer debt, and you've got to maximize that retirement account at least to the best of your ability. Okay? Now, if you've got all sorts of time in the world, you may want to be wondering what else you can do. You can investigate 529 plans on Morningstar and out in the universe. But the 529 plans, if you're not using your own states, that we tend to really gravitate towards are the Nevada plan, Utah, Alaska, and Maryland. But again, check with your own state. If you get a state income tax deduction, then use your state's plan. All right. We answer questions, and Richard from Connecticut, he's got a question. So next up, Richard, how can we help you out today?
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me on. I'm trying to coach my daughter, 30-year-old daughter, through her first 403B application with her employer.
Okay.
Her employer contributes 3% of her earnings, but she does not contribute her own money to the plan. The plan has 15 or so different fund companies and probably a couple dozen other fund options to choose from.
Oh, brother.
And I was trying to put together the best conglomeration I could, considering her age, trying to put together kind of a target date kind of diversified plan from her choices. And then the fees are just are really bothering me.
Is she a teacher?
Yes, she works in a school system, yes.
I don't know why these school systems tend to have some of the worst plans I've ever seen. Ever. So what I want to ask you is that oftentimes these plans you can chop them up into categories. One category is through insurance companies. And then inside of those insurance company options, you'll see a slew of mutual fund-like investments. You'll see names that you probably recognize. But so there's that, but then there's also usually an actual mutual fund company which offers the funds themselves without the insurance company cost. And then sometimes they also have just a plain old fixed account option. So if you're looking at your daughter's options, do you recognize the insurance company or a big mutual fund company that's the sponsor of the plan?
Oh, yes. Yes, Mass Mutual.
Okay. Is that the only choice, the Mass Mutual one?
I think so, yeah. But inside that, there are, American Funds, PIMCO, Dreyfus.
But there's only Mass Mutual. In other words, there's not like, and if you don't want Mass Mutual, you can have these Vanguard slate of funds. You don't see anything like that, right?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, within the Mass Mutual funds, are you seeing index funds listed there? So so Mass Mutual, you're looking at what's called a variable annuity. And inside of that, you can see, as you said, a lot of name brand sub accounts. Is there anything that looks like an index? Say, look at the large, they'll usually be under large growth or large stock. Any index funds in there?
Well, no. The closest I came was a BlackRock 2050.
Oh, okay.
Fund, but within that, it was individual funds rather than index funds.
What's the cost on the BlackRock 2050 target date?
2.4%.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Come on.
And the worst part is that it's invested 39% in cash and 59% in stocks.
I'm in pain right now. What about the American funds? Because usually American funds, they hose you on the way in, but maybe the actual year-to-year cost inside of the mutual fund, inside of the sub-account won't be so high. What are the American funds?
I really didn't see any fund in this whole package that was any lower than, say, 2.2%.
Oh, my God. Okay. Here's my question to you. So they're going to put 3% away no matter what, right?
Yes.
How much money does your daughter have to invest? What would you say is like what you think she can afford to put in? How much money? And before you answer that question, wait, because Mark says I have to go to a break. So
okay.
I'm going to go to a break. So before we go to the break, I want you to look at tell me what her salary is and then how much she plans to contribute of her salary to retirement. And then we're going to come back for Richard and help out his 30-year-old daughter make the best of this lousy 403B plan. That's what we're going to do. Gosh, school systems, come on. All right. I really have to relax. Mark, give me a calm pill. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you would like to give us a holler, send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Give us lots of details. Mark will contact you, and he'll try to wrangle you for the show because I like talking to you. And if you don't want to get wrangled, we'll probably answer your question eventually. Maybe by the end of the year, I will dig out from all of the questions. How many do I have to get down to? What about before I go on my summer break, we try to get to under 100? What do you think? Is that possible or not? You want to get to July. Where are we now? Oh, brother. Okay, we're in May, but we're We're trying. It's a never-ending, exciting game. All right, before we went to the break, we were talking to Richard from Connecticut, who very kindly is helping his daughter out. She's 30 years old, and she works in a school system. She's got what's called a 403B, which is kind of the equivalent for municipalities of a 401k. Her employer will contribute 3% of her salary, but problem is that the plan is a lousy one. Let's be honest. It's a Mass Mutual variable annuity, and the cost of these funds is really high. So, Richard, how much is your daughter earning in the school system?
About $38,000.
Okay. And what do you think she can contribute on an annual basis to her retirement? What's your guess?
Well, probably more than she does. I'd like to think she could do 12% or so, which is what I hear is a good level to be at. She's currently probably putting 6% into a Roth IRA at Vanguard.
Uh-huh.
And this will be in addition to that.
Okay, but does she have to put 3% into her 403B to get the 3%, or is that 3% that goes in by the employer just the employer's contribution regardless of what she puts in?
She can't contribute her own money. It's just the employer's money going in.
So the money that is – wait a second. You mean the money that's – that 3% is the employer, but she is putting in a certain amount, right?
Not into the 403B, no.
Okay.
I guess the employer just does the 3%.
And that's all that we're talking about, the 3% contribution, right?
Right.
Okay. So what I would do is I probably would just go and pick one dopey, cheap-ish fund. If the which American fund is it? The Growth Fund of America or something? What's in the large cap funds there?
That's one. There are several of them.
Pick the American funds, large growth, and then there should be also a small company American funds.
Okay.
And use those two, and that's for their stupid 3%. Now for her Roth, she should be using the index funds at Vanguard. And, you know, maybe what we should do is we're going to say, hey, the 3% by the employer, she'll pick the funds for that. Why don't we see if she can go up to 10%? She should have gotten a little bit of a bump in her pay because of taxes, because of tax reform. So this year should be a little bit better than last year for her cash flow. Right. So maybe just say to her, oh, you know, let's just put a little bit of extra money into that Roth. Are you in good financial shape? Like, how can you help her out at all, or do you want to help her out? Because I have another idea for you.
Yes, we have been helping her out. We sent her our RMDs this year.
Oh, man, you're good. So maybe what you do is you say to her, we haven't decided about what to do, but if you do 12% into your Roth, we'll top it off. We'll put in the rest. We'll give you the money to max out to $5,500 this year.
Great idea.
Right? And we're going to do the parental match.
Parental match.
Is that good?
Yeah.
And then don't sweat it too much on the stupid 403B. I would find out if she if she cares enough. But what I would probably do is I would find out whether the school system has any other options for the 403B, because often what they had were these old insurance company contracts, and then everyone caught on to the fact that what you're discovering, which is they're awfully high in fees. And so then they started adding other 403B options. They literally said, okay, well, you can go to Vanguard or you can go to Fidelity. So it would be worth her while just to find out, is this the only option I have for my 403B? Maybe it is. If it is, then don't freak out. It's just a few percent. And then let's get her to start socking away the money into the Roth, which she's doing. You do the little match component. And is she living at home right now?
No, she's 3,000 miles away. She's on the West Coast. We're on the East Coast.
What? How did you let that happen? Come on. Oh, man. All right. Well, good luck to her. Good luck to you. And you're being a good dad. And, you know, I think that if you start saying, like, hey, I've got money to match, then she might start paying a little bit more attention. So I hear that you're calling and you're doing this really nice thing for her, but your goal should be, I want to get her as interested in this as I am interested in this.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So if she needs help, tell her to call me.
Okay.
All right.
The other option I was wondering is how often are employees successful at going to HR and saying, hey, look, there are so many other options out there, better plans.
Yes, it is. It's possible. You need a good chunk of people. The person that I would nuzzle up to if I were her to help me with that is whoever her, there's usually a teacher who's like the union rep, the person who's like, I teach and I sort of manage the union relationship. Mm-hmm. That person often has quite a bit of power.
Oh, wow.
And so I might say to that person, geez, I was talking to this lady on the radio, and she was saying our plan kind of sucks. And is there any chance that we could because it doesn't cost a lot for the school system to add a second plan. So the more people you have that are interested in that, especially the young people who've kind of gotten, they usually get the worst end with pensions, new people coming in get worse deals. And you get some of the old people, but also some of the young people who say, gosh, can't we just get some easy plan that is just mutual funds that are just even if they said, we're not big enough to do a Vanguard. Okay, well, how about just some other plan where there is at least an index fund option inside the plan? That's all you're asking for.
Terrific.
All right.
Very good.
Go get him, Richard.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Take care. Good luck.
Thank you.
These plans, I don't know. I feel like the school systems have really dropped the ball on the 403B. Not all, but they just seem to not have they don't focus on this. I think that maybe they didn't focus on it, if I really think about this, because they had pension plans. And 403Bs were the supplemental savings vehicle to the pension plan. And many of the teachers really were so focused on the pension and not on these parts, the actual components of a 403B, so they didn't agitate for change. But we are going to agitate for change on your behalf and on your kids' behalf. So if you've got a retirement plan that, like you're Richard, you're trying to help your kid get involved in this. If you want to try to make this a seamless process for your kids, or you want to try to help them get more involved in their own financial lives, this is a great time to do it. It's funny because in financial planning, it's not like someone wants to just wake up and be like, yes, I want to immerse myself into the fee structure of mutual funds. But once it's real and it's part of your life, then it becomes much more interesting. So, that's when you really want to pounce on it and get your kids or yourself involved. And if you can do that, I think you're going to be so much better off. You're going to try to make this leap, not when, just like, oh, eat your vegetables, but like, hey, if I eat my vegetables, then I get dessert. And dessert is I get to retire. And now it's my life. It's real. It's part of what I care about. Do you care about anything like that? I want dessert. I want dessert. If you've got a financial question, we want to hear from you. If you want to learn how to get your dessert, email us. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. It's the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Maybe I should be crowdsourcing the title of my book, Mark. I'm writing a book. It's done, okay? Basically, the book is done. It's dropping next February. And I have a tentative title, and now the publisher wants to do a subtitle, and I don't want to do a subtitle. What do I do? You know what I think happens? I think that everybody follows along a path. It's like investing is this way. You follow along with the pack of things, how things have been done, instead of thinking, how might I do it differently? Or maybe this is not as hard as you're all making it. I always feel like that. Why do we make it so hard? Just say a title. Why do I mean, if I had a strange title, and then needed something to explain it, that would be one thing. Oh, so the title right now, the working title is The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. That's the working title. I like it. Anyway, you guys will let me know. I'll be talking a lot about this over the next 8 or 9 months. Don't worry. All right, let's answer some emails because they're piling up. We're still getting through April. Oof. Okay. Terry wants to know about help with paying off credit card balances. Wants to know if Diamond Lending Network is a reputable company. You know what? I think all these companies are total ripoffs. Even if they were reputable, why do you need them? You absolutely don't. I think that one of the things has something to do with you think someone's good, you pay someone, and you don't need it. So all you need to do is call the credit card company up and ask. Ask them to reduce your rate, come up with a game plan, but don't think about, there's no reason for you to pay somebody to do this for you. So I would avoid all of these companies. Even if the legitimate, non-legitimate, just do it yourself. All right. Tom writes that he's got stock losses that he for his taxes. He also has gains. And I don't want to sell this is funny. I don't want to sell stocks that have the losses because I receive dividends, which are increasing every year. My question is, when I pass away, will my beneficiary, my son, get the cost basis of the stocks on the date of my passing? If so, it wouldn't pay to sell those stocks anyway. Suggestions. So here's the rule. If you gift something during your life, the recipient of that gift, usually your kids, will also get your cost basis. You bought the stock for $1, it's trading for $10. You gift it to your kid, then the kid gets your $1 cost basis. You die with the stock, then the kid or whoever receives the stock upon your death gets what's called a step up in cost basis, meaning that the value is the date of death valuation of the stock. That's the new cost basis. Now, I will also say that it really depends on how old you are, right? So may not be worth it if you're 30, 40, 50, 60 to be thinking about your step up in cost basis. Joe writes, I will receive a pension of $90,000 a year. What is the equivalent of this in a 401k plan? In other words, how much in savings would yield $90,000 a year? Well, here's a good way to think about it. You want to give a guess? I'm going to say $3 million about. In other words, for every million you saved, you're going to generate $35,000 a year in income and not plow through. So you've got to have, that would be $3 million in a pre-tax plan, maybe even more, maybe more like $4 million because the money you pull out is taxable. And so what's interesting about this question, and the reason why I love it, Joe, is that, oftentimes I'll talk to people who are civil servants with pensions, teachers with pensions, and they'll say it's such a bummer because we get paid less than our private sector brethren. And I said, well, maybe the better way to think about it is you don't get paid less. You get paid a portion of your income today and a portion in the future in the form of a pension. And the other thing about trying to make a comparison to how much you'd have to save today in a big lump sum versus a pension is that a pension's a guarantee. And the guarantee means that you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to sweat it. And that is one of the things that is incredibly important. So not sweating it is a big win to me. Okay. Finally, Ron writes about IRS has 7 years to audit your returns if they suspect you made a mistake. And Ron's like, well, no, I thought it was 3 years. It is 3, but then there's an extra 3. And if there's fraud involved, it's 7. So 7 is the safest number to use according to IRS folks. Yeah, could you probably get away with less? Yeah. But I'm really always a nervous Nelly. So I say, what is the absolute? In other words, you don't have to have made a fraudulent mistake. They just have to think you made a fraudulent mistake. Fraud is intense. So, I mean, most of us, it won't matter. So I think that's the best practice is to just go, who cares? You know what I mean? I just think you might as well be a little bit more conservative. That's all. I just think that's a safer way to do it. Anyway, so the IRS on its website says it's generally 3 years. If there's an error, we may add 3 additional years. We usually don't go back more than the last 6 years, but there is a 7th year if necessary. So, it's amazing. This is all about if you go to the IRS.gov, it's really interesting to read through all of like what it means. But it is generally 6 years. But they do have a little extra thing which says we can go to a 7th. So I would say 6. I'm going to amend myself. I'm going to say maybe 6 is the fine. We usually don't go back more than the last 6 years. We usually don't go back. Usually. So they could. I don't know. I'm going to stick with 7. Okay. You're listening to the very conservative wiener, Jill Schlesinger, and it is the Jill on Money program. And we are delighted that you're with us. Give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And go onto our website, JillOnMoney.com. You can listen to past shows, or if you've missed any part of this one, and you can sign up for a free newsletter. We will be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle at @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. Have you checked out our free newsletter? How's our newsletter subscription rate, Mark? Climbing. He's making the hand motion of the escalator or the up the mountain chairlift, whatever metaphor you'd like. How are we doing on my goal of his goal is to get a certain amount, and my goal for him is 5 times that amount. So you're not getting a bonus until you get to my goal. Forget about yours. Anyway, sign up for our free newsletter. It drops on Fridays, right? How come I've stopped getting it? Oh, that's a good idea. I'll check that out. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We are still digging out from the spring, if you can believe it. Hard to believe. It is true. So if you sent us an email in April, that's where we are. We got through the first quarter. I thought we were flying high, and then all of a sudden tax season came and we got flooded. So here's a message that comes from Jim about how I can avoid paying tax on an IRA that I'm cashing out. I'm 73 years old. Answer is easy. You can't. There's one way you can. I mean, if you've already cashed it out, you can't. But you can make a donation directly from your IRA up to $100,000. And that way you won't have to pay tax. But if you've already cashed it out, the answer is no. Here's an email from Harry and Kathy, who hadn't gotten their tax refund at the end of May. Oof. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that except to keep hawking them. It's always curious to me. Danny writes, I just refinanced. I took additional cash out in order to manage and pay off my credit card debt. I've got 6 cards. Should I completely pay off and close cards, or pay down and leave small balances? Third choice. Pay them all off, but don't cancel them. Canceling them has this weird impact on your credit score, so don't do that. And also, since you just did this, it's 2018, the amount of money that you refinanced that is around your house and like what was the existing loan balance, that's deductible. What you pulled out to pay down your credit card debt going forward, not deductible. Don't forget that. The rules changed. All right? That's an important one. Okay, let's see here. Gary writes, I absolutely love your program. I trust your suggestions and recommendations, advice. Thank you to all who make it possible. All is Mark and Jill. Here we are, all of us. I'm a 66-year-old man, healthier than the average bear, though not excellent. I'm retiring in the spring. I've got $190,000 in 401k, no mortgage, $1,600 a month RV cost and auto. Last year's salary, $104,000. $100,000 in last 4 years. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? $3,500 a month pension. I don't really understand this at all. But I'm going to get to his question. I don't understand the description of what he's saying. I don't know exactly what he's saying about his. Maybe he's saying $100,000 a year in expenses, and he'll get $3,500 a month in pension upon retirement. Wife's going to get $1,171. So the big question is it better to deplete savings for 4 years while the Social Security amount increases by 8% a year? How do I determine whether or not to begin Social Security at age 66 or delay until 70? My bottom line concern is having to make a necessary, not by choice, major purchase for a new roof or car or whatever. So the answer to that is that you've got basically almost $400,000 in 401k. No, I would not pull that money out and spend down those savings for Social Security because, as you noted, depleting that asset is really gutting out your liquidity. And if something big were to happen, the answer is that you wouldn't have the money. So I think no. I think just claim your Social Security at your full retirement age. If you could, obviously, the best way to really do this is to keep working. So if you were going to give me a choice of what I would like to happen, I would say working longer is the best bet. But if my choice is either spend down assets from my retirement plan in order to delay claiming, I wouldn't do that. So your inclination is correct. Don't do that. Here's another Social Security question. Says, my greatest concern in 2018 is income from Social Security. Will it be 100% taxable? It depends on the rest of your tax situation. The taxability of Social Security is, if it's your only income, I think you're going to be fine. But I need a little bit more information, Fred. I'm sorry. Just tell me about whatever else he's got going on. That would be great if you could tell me that. Last question. How much time do I have? 1 minute? Okay, less than a minute. James wants to know, is a cash gift to my daughter deductible? I used it to assist in small condo purchase. No, not deductible. It's a gift. No, absolutely not. But you can go on the deed if you want. That would be kind of cool. Not deductible. Okay. You are listening to Jill on Money. And if you've got a question, give us a holler. Very easy. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. When we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. Before we skip to the next hour, I just want to do one last email to finish it out. Remember, if you've got a question, just shoot us a note. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. This is from Lynette. She says, you mentioned contacting someone or a company about long-term care. My sister-in-law is actually looking at it right now, and you said a couple of different names. Can you please help me? Here's the problem with long-term care. fewer and fewer companies are actually in the long-term care market, meaning some of them that were in it are now only servicing existing contracts. So here's what I did. I went to AALTCI.org, which I believe is the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance. AALTCI.org. And they've got a bunch of names, and they say, here are the nation's leading LTC insurance companies. In other words, the ones that are still in the market. And of these names, I'm going to tell you the ones that I think are probably worth checking out. The biggie is Genworth. That is the old spinoff from GE Capital, Genworth. And it's a wholly owned company. It has nothing to do with GE anymore. So Genworth is probably a good one to check out. They do a lot of research, and they're committed to the market. So too is Mass Mutual. So too is, I think MetLife is, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure that if it is. I don't know if MetLife is doing new policies, but here anyway, I'll give you some more. John Hancock, Prudential, Allianz, the big German company, MetLife, Mass Mutual, Genworth. Those are the ones that I would be checking out. I think that's good. I'm not sure what your sister's financial situation is, but let's be sure she needs this coverage, because so many people are purchasing long-term care policies and they don't need them. So that would be a darn shame if you bought it and you don't need it. Okay. It is Jill on Money, and when we return, we've got our big interview, and we are delighted that we know you will be listening with rapt attention. But just in case you want to fool around, go to JillOnMoney.com during the break. Read, listen, watch all the stuff that we do, and sign up for our free newsletter. Jill on Money will be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Oh, welcome to hour number 2. It's so exciting. That means you might be 1 hour closer to the World Cup final, depending on when you're listening to this. Or maybe it already happened if you're listening to this after the fact. Who knows? I'm not ruining anything. No spoilers here. All right? We're all in this together now. So anyway, I have to tell you that I was interviewed by the New York Times. I was quoted in this article about fresh out of college. It's time to take stock of your finances. The lovely Ann Carnes interviewed me. She's great. Today, our guests, double guests, are a father-daughter team. They work together, which, you know, it's hard. I think it's definitely hard to work together, but they are working together. Walter Wisniewski, his daughter is Allison Vanaski. They've written a book called The Millionaire Within. They're both financial advisors. So here's our interview with Walt and Allie. Walter Wisniewski and his daughter Allison, a.k.a. Allie Vanaski, are CFPs, certified financial planners, and they have just written a book called The Millionaire Within. So welcome to the program, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys work together, a father-daughter team, and you work together? Wait a second. I'm putting my back to him for a second. Allie, what made you want to work with your father? That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It's my dad and I are really close. There's challenging times, definitely.
Tell us about those.
Yeah.
She wants to see it. I knew it. I told you she's going to ask for that. Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, but we have a coach that we work with that helps us. So
Really?
that really helps with our communication. But, you know, my dad and I growing up, we were always so close. So I think that really helps.
Wait, other siblings?
Yeah. So I have a brother and a sister.
But
both
you're
younger
the only
than me.
one in the business.
I'm the only one in the business.
So
right.
tell us about how you got interested in the business of providing financial advice. So what you grew up with it, obviously, because he was in the business.
Yep.
So then what did you do? You went to college, right?
Went to college. I majored in finance. and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. So I worked at Lehman Brothers right out of school, and then moved to. I was in compliance there. I was kind
You
of.
didn't do a very good job.
Yeah, but she was smart. She got out in August.
I got out right
2008.
before they
You're
collapsed.
kidding.
Yeah, it's like perfect timing.
Wow.
Then I went to a trading firm in Jersey City. Kind of bopped around there for a little bit.
What
So
were you
in
doing there?
compliance. I was doing equities surveillance for the trading desk. So it was interesting. So I learned a lot about like trading, stock trading, that kind of thing. And it just wasn't, it was missing something. And I saw how my dad interacted with his clients. Our clients become our best friends. I missed that.
So how many years were you working before you joined?
Probably about six years. Yeah.
When you joined, you didn't know about personal financial planning. You were doing more institutional stuff. So
Right.
Is that what led you to go get your CFP, to go get that certification?
Yeah. I mean, I always, being the daughter of a financial planner, you grow up with some semblance of financial planning, save 20% of everything that you make and, don't go into credit card debt, those kinds of things. But studying for the CFP, it just felt like a natural progression, following kind of what I learned growing up and seeing what my dad did for a living and meeting with clients and speaking with them. So it felt normal.
Was it just your father, or were there other people in the firm?
It was my dad and his associate,
Right.
and Tom, and it was just the two of them for about 11 or 12 years. My mom works there too. She does the books. It's like one big happy family.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just them, and they needed some help. They were starting to grow and kind of busting at the seams, needing another person in there.
What was your view of the financial planning from the landscape of the institutional side? Did you sort of say like, nah, that's like nice for dad, not for me? I mean, how did you view it before you got into it?
It's interesting. It feels so much more homey when you're in this personal financial planning world. Being on the corporate side of things, it's cold and it's, there's no personality in there. It's just kind of cut and dry. This is what you do. End of story. I'll call you next week. And personal financial planning, I mean, you're dealing with people's money and their emotions and their personalities. And yeah, I could tell you exactly what you need to be doing, but they might not believe it. They might not, want to do that at that point. You have to kind of coach them through it. It's very psychological.
Now let's turn to your father for a second, get his little pathway. So, Walt, we met a couple of years ago at a conference in California. At that time, you were very sweet. You kind of pulled me aside and said, oh, my daughter and I are in this business together. I'd love to talk to you more. And all I could glom onto was when I found out that you were a musician. So how do you go from being a musician to getting involved with personal finance?
I started to be a concert pianist. And in my mid 20s, after practicing so much and studying, I realized I needed to eat. And my father had businesses, and I would run them when I was in. I ran my father's delicatessen business when I was 14. I did all the books, and later on, he owned a liquor store, and I did the books, and I knew people and relationships with the customers, and that really helped. Even though I didn't have the business background, I had the personal acumen.
And so, but you made a living. You scratched out a living as a working musician, right?
Barely.
And then what
Yeah.
happened? How old were you when you were like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore?
I was in my mid to late 20s. Yeah.
Wow.
And some of my friends got together and they said, hey, what would you like to really do? I said, well, I like numbers. I like Wall Street. I have a stock account. And
How did you have a stock account as a struggling musician?
I liked it. I knew Wall Street, a new business. And they said, you should be a stockbroker. And that's how I started.
What did you think was missing as a broker versus becoming a financial planner?
When I grew up in a delicatessen, we worked hard every day from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. It was probably the original 7-11, then 7 till 10. There were 3 boys, my mother and father. We lived above the store, and every night we'd close up the store and fill the beer lockers up. And one night, my older brother said he was going out for a ride, see his friend. And I said, can I come? And he goes, not this time. And I said, well, when you coming home? And he goes, real soon. But he never did come home. A couple of miles from the house, he was killed in a car crash when he was 20. My parents went to pieces. They lost it. They turned to alcohol, and the business got shuttered. And I knew that based on what my parents went through, I realized, hey, money is not about finance all the time, but it's emotional too. And so I thought, you know what? I wouldn't want anything like that to happen to my parents, to happen to my clients, like what happened to my parents. And that's how this whole thing with financial decision making is not about money, but it's about emotions and behavior. And that was the basis for the book. And then when Allie joined me, I said, hey, let's take all these ideas and let's put them together in a book.
We'll get back to our interview with Walter Wisniewski and Allison Vanaski in just a moment. During this break, why don't you go to JillOnMoney.com and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Free weekly newsletter. Come on, just go to JillOnMoney.com. When we return, more of our interview with Walt and Allie. We'll be right back.
Wondering how to make your money work for you? Get on the line now, 855-411-JILL. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. Mr. Mark Talercio is running the show from behind the glass window. And if you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. askjill@jillonmoney.com. Mark, are we getting out of our email backlog? Tell me what I need to do we're going to have to do a couple of extra just total email episodes. Is that the story here? They are pouring in daily. Well, let's do this. We're going to have to do all email. We're going to have to do like an all email /caller episode here during the summer. That's what we're going to do. But keep writing to us. We will get to you as quickly as we possibly can. Mark is doing a fine job with that. All right, let's go back to our interview with Walt Wisniewski and Allison Vanaski. We're talking about their new book. It is called The Millionaire Within. And don't worry, we'll have a link to it in the show notes. So here is more of our interview with Walt and Allie. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the book. It's called The Millionaire Within. Let me please give you the subtitle as well. If you don't remember, you wrote this probably 2 years ago, right? A guidebook to money relationships and creating a vision for your unique path to success. So let's talk about this. First of all, I want to know, considering that a million ain't what it used to be, why say the millionaire? Why even put a number out there? What is that? What did you do that for? What was supposed to be the trigger for us?
It's sort of an arbitrary number, but we wanted to throw something out there to know that it's achievable. It's, you think of a millionaire maybe as being this, the epitome of creating wealth for yourself, and it is so attainable. And you look at, the assets you can accumulate over time. And if you just make a couple small little tweaks in what you're doing, you can get there even faster.
And what you guys have both done, which is fun because you co-wrote this book, is that you sort of come at it from a slightly different perspective, but you kind of get to the same point, which is, hey, you're driving yourself a little crazy about your money, right? And so talk about why this happens. Why is it that we drive ourselves crazy about money, Walter?
I think that people go through situations and circumstances in life, and things happen to them, like your loss of a job, your loss of a spouse, or divorce. And it could be men and women. They become frozen. You lose a job, and you don't know what to do, and money becomes frightening.
We tend to overthink it, especially when it comes to our money. Everyone thinks that everyone else has an edge, and in reality, nobody has an edge. The market will do what it's going to do. It will perform how it's going to perform. And we hope to be invested in it to take advantage of that. There's no magic sauce out there that's going to make us outperform.
Walt, you've lived through many market ups and downs. Yeah. And the biggest obviously being in the 2008-2009 crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like clients came out of that crisis now almost 10 years later, changed, or are they still trying to outsmart the market?
They've come through it changed, especially I noticed right out of the millennial generation, they were affected by that really much more than the baby boomers like me. But that's part of the whole psychological kind of behavioral thing that we get into with clients. You know, we're talking about returns. We don't really talk about returns with clients. We say, how are you going to consume this money later on? How do you consume it? You don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know what kind of rates of return you're going to get. So it's really, that's the hardest thing, not the rates of return, especially with the older people. And that's where I think there were studies done that most wealthy middle-class people end up giving the money to their children. They don't know how to spend it.
They're so fearful of what could happen.
Yeah.
They're fearful of another 2008 happening that they don't spend it. And they end up with a couple $1 million just left over.
Poor them.
Yeah.
So tell us about the way that people can be more mindful about how they can approach this process. You know, it's funny. We had a call this morning from a woman who said, I work with a broker and I've got, what was it, Mark? $1.5 million. And it's a broker at a big institution that you've heard of. And she was being charged 2% annually for her $1.5 million. And she's not going to really use it at all. And the broker said, well, you know, if you let me manage your money and on a discretionary basis, I'll drop it to 1.5%. And she said, you know, now I'm like, I don't even know if I need this guy. So I said, you know, well, what do you want with the money? And it was very funny because I was trying to ask all those questions that I'm sure you guys ask your clients or your prospects all the time. Like, how much money do you need? What are you going to do? And she goes, well, I'm just leaving this to my kids. I don't need this money. And so I said, so why are you paying someone 2% to manage it, or even 1.5%? Right. Like, what's the whole point here? We get to the end of the conversation and she goes, I'm starting to think that maybe I can just do this myself. Why don't I just, you know, manage my own money? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you? And I'm wondering how you guys feel about the ability for people to manage their own money, given that we are such emotional human beings. And what is the type of personality who could manage his or her own money?
It's tough. I mean, they say that even financial advisors need financial advisors because you're so close to it and you're so close to something. You know, sometimes even I have like a personal financial situation that I'm dealing with, and I have to take a step back and say, how would I educate my clients on this? Because you get this like inner struggle of what you want to do versus what you should do. So I'd say it's very difficult. And I'd say that's probably one of the best things that we do for our clients is we help them not to make mistakes with it. So even if we don't make any changes, we're preventing them from making too many trades or too many, you know, changes in the portfolio. Fidelity actually did a study throughout the 2008 period and well into the recovery. And they looked at all of their clients' accounts and they said, what were these people invested in that did the best? And the client accounts at Fidelity that did the best were the people that forgot they had an account at Fidelity.
I love that. That's awesome.
I always like to say people that died are the ones that they couldn't find them.
But that is, I mean, it's very hard to do. And it's funny. Sometimes I'll go, you know, the market up, there's an upheaval on a given day. And I'll go on the air. And one time I went on and my mother said, don't tell people not to panic. That's an annoying thing to hear. But what she said was, you know, people are upset. Aren't they allowed to be upset? I said, yes, they just aren't allowed to do anything about it. Right. At which point she said, well, then say that. And it was fascinating. I have been using that more and more when the market is, I say, like, you know, I understand this is scary. And just by saying that, it almost diffuses the fear factor and that, like, I get that you are scared and I get that it's freaky to wake up one day and say, oh, my gosh, you know, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which, you know, for so many years it felt like a 500-point move was a big move. That's not really such a big move anymore, but that it can feel scary in the moment. How we can help people acknowledge those emotions but not react or take action as a result of them. How do you do that with your clients, Walt?
We look at all aspects of a client's life, not just financial, but we look at what's happening with their children, what's happening with their wills, what happens where they want to live, where they want to work. Somebody's human capital, Allie and I talk about it, especially with the millennials. It's your power to produce. If you're a young millennial making $150,000 a year, over 10 years, you're going to make $1.5 million. What do you do with that money? How do you save it? So it's that emotional part of the money, where you want to be. So it's kind of like we try and help people reinvent the way they look at money.
Allie, what have you learned from Walt about old farts like me and Walt? What have you learned about us? Again,
don't put yourself in the same category.
Yeah, you're
as
not
him.
the same category as me.
I think we're closer than you think.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's over 50.
Uh-huh.
What have you learned about those people when it comes to their personal financial lives that you might not have known if you weren't in this business?
The power to work hard. I think it's lost on a lot of these upcoming generations. I'm afraid that technology is sort of taking the place of that. And I appreciate technology and love everything that it's doing for us. And it's making our lives easier. But that power, that drive to create a family and protect our family and save for our future, I hope it's always there. I hope it's always there for future generations.
Okay, when we return, more of the Walt and Allie Show. Right now, you may want to go check out our podcast. It's called Better Off. You can get it on Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. Check it out, subscribe, and leave us a rating if you get a chance. All right, we'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
Oh, yes, you are back with the show that takes the mystery out of your financial life. I am Jill Schlesinger. This is Jill on Money. I'm so psyched because I don't know when I get to really start going nuts with this, but I have written a book, and my edited manuscript was accepted by my friends over at Penguin Random House. So I'm so psyched to have a great rest of the summer. But I'm also psyched to talk nonstop about this book until it drops in February. I have to go easy. I have to make it so that you guys don't get totally sick of it. But it's called The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. Because we all do dumb things. And I know you're smart because I get your questions all the time. So I know all about this. That said, we'll be talking a lot more about the book. Today, we're talking about someone else's book, Walter Wisniewski and Allison Vanaski, the father-daughter team that wrote the book, The Millionaire Within. But they also work together. And I know a lot of you are in small businesses and small family businesses. And I'm intrigued to know about how that relationship works. So that's what we're talking about in this last segment with Walt and Allie. Here's our interview. Before we finish up, I want to know, what is the hardest part of working with your daughter, Walt?
I've really learned to communicate better working with her, because I really had to be cognizant of her feelings and the way she wants the business to grow. And I thought it was always about me. I think the biggest transition was saying, hey, it's not about me. It's about her ideas too. And she really has ratcheted the firm up in the last, couple of years.
So how many people work at the firm now?
There's six
Wow,
people.
That's way bigger.
We just hired an intern.
Well, we had 6 with an intern.
Yeah.
5 normally.
Where do you want this business to go, Allie?
I like the small family feel of it. I love knowing every single one of our clients. I really like that. I don't know if I ever want it to get big enough where, each advisor has their own group and we can't,
You know what's
take
fascinating
over.
about that, though? I think that it's an industry that pushes you in a direction of you have to get bigger. You have to get a certain amount of money under management. We certainly have people who are listening who are in the business. Growing a firm doesn't mean growing the number of clients exponentially or growing assets under management. You have to get to a certain size to be able to sustain yourself. But as you said, Allie, I think it is important that you have, if you're the kind of person who wants to have that touch, that you have to know that, you might say, well, okay, if I want to have that idea, then what is the maximum number of clients that I can, right?
Secret number that makes this all work still, yeah.
And how long do you want to work, Walt? I mean, she's got big plans for this firm. We got to get rid of you. You're carrying.
I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue to work. I really enjoy I go to a lot of conferences and I bring back a lot of new ideas to the firm. I'm kind of like meet with the clients still. I think the big thing for me is how do I make a difference in people's lives? And being with them, we look at all aspects of their lives. Not just making money. We can do that. I've been doing this since August of 1982, so I really get it. We know how to make money, but it's how do you make a difference in their lives?
How do you create value?
How do you create value
for the clients?
What's hard about working with your dad?
It's hard trying to I feel like his experience and wisdom in this industry is so great that I'm always learning. And when I have a good idea, I really want to try it out. I get frustrated because I'm not sure if it's going to work. And I know we've always done things a certain way and it does work. So, making those changes, I kind of feel like I have to fight for it.
Yeah.
And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, shoot, I hope this works.
Yeah.
It's.
But you're not, it's a funny thing about being an investment professional is that what you realize is that there is no such thing as perfection.
It's hard too, though, because we all wear so many hats in our business. It's a small office. There's 5 of us. So we're doing everything. Answering the phones to making trades to, building a succession plan. We're doing everything.
You never told me that before about being sensitive about bringing up new ideas.
Dr. Jill.
There we go.
We have to talk about this with our coach.
Dr. Phil and Dr. Jill.
You're such an idea guy that sometimes I don't have enough room.
Wait, we can do? We'll call Jill and have her give us answers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
1-855 Ask Jill.
Our new coach.
So if somebody is listening and you were to say the big misconception about financial planning is what? What is the misconception that you want to correct to people listening here? What is it that you feel like people, they just don't get? And we talked about the emotions, but is there something else about this that creates an obstacle for people succeeding?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of negative feedback in our industry. I remember I go to these little playtime groups with my kids, and I'm always looking for new mommy friends and chit chat with a mom. And she asked me what I did, and I told her I was a financial advisor, and I asked what she did, and she said I work for a nonprofit. So we're basically the opposite. I was shocked. There's such a negative connotation around what we do. And I know personally, we're all about helping people. I think the industry gets a bad rap. You never hear about the good guys. You hear about the bad guys.
That's an interesting point. The problem is the bad guys have been so bad for so long that it's not great for everyone else who's left in it.
We try and show people a way different way of looking at something, and they go, whoa. And I said, yeah. We say what worked 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. Come on, let's look at it differently.
Yeah, financial planning is not linear. So when you decide to retire and you've got now 30 more years to plan for, that's not going to be the same every year. And it helps so much to talk to someone every couple months and say, am I doing the right thing? Did anything change in my life that I should be telling my advisor about? And it's a process that you should work through someone you trust, together, navigate that, side by side, make sure you're making the right decisions for yourself, that kind of thing.
I think advisors need more to listen. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I think that's where you derive the trust. And I think we need more of that. Not only need more of it on Wall Street, we need more of it in the world.
Everywhere, yeah.
Empathy lives. All right. This has been so fabulous. We've talked about it for a while. So Walter Wisniewski, Allison Vanaski. The name of the book is The Millionaire Within. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to Walt Wisniewski and Allie Vanaski. The book is called The Millionaire Within, and we will link to it in our show notes. And next up, we are going to start fielding more of your questions. If you've got a financial issue that's percolating, let us know. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back. are back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Askjill@jillonmoney.com. You can hop onto our website, jillonmoney.com. See the theme, jillonmoney.com. Get it? There you can read articles that I have written, blog posts. You can listen to past radio shows. You can subscribe to the Better Off podcast. That's our sister show, I would call it, Mark, wouldn't you? Sister show. That's a good way to put it. The Better Off podcast, you can subscribe. Go right to the website and do it. You can watch TV segments. It's always fun. See what I look like, just in case. Subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. Woo! What else can they do on the website? I think that's it. Send us a question. It's all good. So check out the website, jillonmoney.com. All right, Douglas writes that he is a retiree, 70 years old. His wife is retired as well. She is 66. Typically, the recommendation for someone our ages with IRAs is to have a distribution of 50 stocks and 50% cash bonds. I'm wondering if that's too conservative. We have 4 other sources of income. Oh, well, already you're singing my song, baby. 2 defined benefit pensions and 2 Social Security checks. The pension plans plus the Social Security income basically covers 2/3 of their total monthly income. The remaining 36%, that's so weird. I don't know what he's really saying. So for the okay, so covering for the I get it now. So their Social Security, their income is covered already. They need to get 1/3 of their income with 18% stocks, 18% bonds. I don't know why they're doing it that way. It's I don't understand what he's writing here, Mark. Do you get this? Okay. The answer to your question is, first of all, I need the numbers, which make it much easier. But if you're asking me whether a 50-50 allocation is sufficient, more or less risky enough to generate what you need, I need the numbers associated with it. It's not. So what you're really, let's just pretend for a second. Let's say, I'm going to make up the numbers for you. You got $1 million saved, okay? And let's say that you need $100,000 a year to live on. Let's say that 2/3 of that $100,000 need is fulfilled, and let's say you need another $35,000 from your $1 million portfolio. If that's the case, a 50-50 split works. It's not perfect, but it works. And if you're asking whether or not you need to be more aggressive, I'm not sure why. What's the reason to be more aggressive? If it's just that you want to have fun. I mean, if you have $10 million, then you can take part of it and be aggressive. Or if you have even $2 million. I think what's important here is that you've done a lot of the hard work, which is you've figured out what you need to live on. You know that your current income covers that 2/3 of that. How you get that last third is from the portfolio. Will the amount of money, the corpus of that account, will that be enough to generate what you need? And depending on what the numbers are, it sounds like it probably is yes. If that's the case, there's no real reason to make your portfolio riskier than necessary, because to what end? Just because you assume more risk doesn't mean you will automatically make more money, right? It means you have the opportunity to make more money. It means that perhaps you could, but you could also, at the very moment you decide to make this more aggressive, that maybe you lose money. And how do you feel about that? Do you think that you're more of a 60-40 than a 50-50? Okay, sure. But every time you ratchet up risk, you must ask yourself, not what my potential gain is, but how would I feel if the market just collapsed? And if you're fine, then maybe you can put more risk in the portfolio. Or, if you're Warren Buffett, you can have a time horizon of infinity. You're not investing for yourself because you have so much money in that account. You're essentially not investing for your income needs. You're investing for your future generations. That's a different way of looking at it. Still, I need more numbers, but I think that I always wonder if people are asking those questions about increasing risk just at the moment when we're about to see the market turn around and go the other way. So I would just be careful, okay? I don't need to belabor that. Just being careful and taking a little bit of a pause before you press the risk. You start saying, let's reallocate. Just not sure what you gain. So I hope that's helpful. And if you want to send me more numbers that are pertinent to your specific question and your situation, I'm happy to field those as well. Okay? All right. You are listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Our phone number is 855-411-JILL. And when we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. And before we close out the show, just want to get to a quick email or two. This is from Steve, who's a landsman who grew up in the 50s and 60s and thanks his smart parents that he's done everything that I say on the show, which airs in the Bay Area, KSFO, on Sunday mornings. He said, I really ask people that I deal with to listen to you, so keep it up. That's so nice. I love that. Thank you. We really appreciate that. We do. And here's a question. This is from Missy, who says, if a person, maybe not myself, but just a person, that was my editorial, had an extra $50,000 to invest, what would be your optimum recommendation for a safe yet profitable investment? Oh, Missy, I need to know so much more about you. And I know that that's an annoying thing. But for example, how do I know that for you, maybe the smartest thing to do would be potentially to pay down your mortgage? Maybe it's a 4.5% note and that's really safe and that's a great thing to do. Or maybe it would be, well, add this to your overall investment plan. You have an account already. It's really hard to have that conversation of, I have money to invest, but not have the information that I would need that would help me guide you. Now, that said, remember, as you listen to this show, there are times when I talk to people and I'll say, do this or do that. That doesn't necessarily apply to every single person. If you want advice for you, then you have to give us a shout. Because without the details, we can't give you the best advice, or at least the advice that's best for you. Okay? So to get in touch with us, all you have to do is send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. And if you've got any questions, or if you missed any part of our interview with Walter Wisniewski and Allison Vanaski, go to the website, jillonmoney.com. You can listen to this show or old shows if you missed any part of it, just under the Listen tab, jillonmoney.com. Thank you guys for listening, and we are going to see you next week when the World Cup will finally be over.